Yeah, so hi everyone, and welcome to our series where we interview computer science faculty about their job search and interview experience with the goal to basically help future faculty candidates better prepare for their job search and interviewing process. And today we are here with Falia Dudali, who has recently joined the India Software Institute as a tenure-track assistant professor. Falia has a multidisciplinary research focus at the intersection of systems, machine learning, and also computer vision. With that, welcome and thanks a lot for joining.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited for this today.
Yeah, so first of all, can you shortly introduce yourself and also your career path?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Greece. I did my undergraduate degree there in electrical and computer engineering. And then straight from undergrad, I went to the PhD program at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, United States. And that took me about 6 years to finish and wrap up. And during my last year, I applied for the academic job market. So then I went straight from PhD to faculty positions. And now I'm at IMDEA Software Institute in Madrid, Spain, where I started just a couple of months ago.
Okay, sounds great. Probably also have much better weather than we do in Zurich.
Oh yeah, it's always so sunny, and it's getting a bit cold, but it's always so sunny and nice, to be honest. I love it.
Right. And what about your research direction? So what's your research focus currently and also in the future?
Absolutely. So during my PhD, I gained more of a systems background. So I started more of a systems work on how to manage heterogeneous memory hardware. So building system software for that. And then after half of my PhD and mostly my dissertation thesis was introducing machine learning into the management of heterogeneous memory hardware and how we can make it practical and what foundations we need to build for our systems. So this is the reason why my research lies at the intersection of systems and machine learning. And more recently, towards the end of my PhD, and more on towards my research vision, is also incorporating computer vision methods. So I have this crazy idea and like big goal of actually introducing images inside our systems and using computer vision methods, image processing methods to build faster and smarter systems using now computer vision and machine learning as part of system software for managing heterogeneous hardware and in general system software.
Sounds exciting.
Thank you.
And let's perhaps also chat a bit about IMDEA.
Yes.
I mean, it's a very special kind of institution in the sense that it's not a university, right? It's also, of course, different than an industrial research lab. So can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, absolutely. So IMDEA is a research institute in Spain. There is a software institute, a networks institute, so it has different science categories. And so it's a research institute. So as a faculty, my official title is research assistant professor. So that means that I don't actually teach right now. So because we are not part of the university, but IMDEA works closely with the university. So some faculty have positions at both. And the university I'm referring to is the local university in Madrid. It's called UPM. We are co-located in the same campus. So I'm not teaching right now, but if I wanted to teach, I needed to somehow either collaborate with some faculty that is part of the university itself. So in terms of teaching is mostly the things I can do is mostly seminars, talks, and in this way have interactions with students in local universities. For example, next week I'm going to give a talk at another university in Spain, in Madrid. So this is how you kind of get interaction with the university system as a research coming from a research institute. So that is in terms of teaching. Then in terms of how we get students, exactly because we're not a university, we don't have to do recruiting in cycles. Like usually in the universities, you apply for a PhD in December and you get you can start in the next fall. So here any faculty can open positions at any time of the year, depending on the funding they have and where that comes from. So I started 2 months ago, and already I was able to open a position for both PhD student and a research intern. So so then the position is open for, let's say, 1-2 months, depending on how much you want to give for the applicants to send you the applications. And then you go through the interview process pretty fast. And then the students that you select can start pretty much immediately. So for example, right now I'm in the process of recruiting students that can start in January of 2022. And right now it's November 2021. So I can have students that can start in 1 or 2 months, which is great. So the recruiting cycle is much more flexible and much more fast in some sense. So depending on your funding, you can open positions at any point of the year.
Okay, yeah, that sounds nice. I mean, from what you said, it also seems then that you can decide who to select and not the entire institute.
Yes,
also, right?
Exactly. So it's completely up to the faculty. So, and then this is exactly the reason why there is no actual global pool of applicants. Like students can apply in the global, let's say, announcement, but then it's mostly each faculty will receive applicants for a specific position. So then you only get applicants that are actually interested in working with you at the description that you have posted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess for students and for you, it's then true that because you mentioned that typically there is no teaching involved, and I guess that also holds then for the students that they fully concentrate on doing research.
Oh, yes, right? Exactly. So as a PhD student at IMDEA, there is the assumption that you have taken your master's degree, so you don't have to have any more classes in terms of technical breadth. There are some seminars and like soft skills and how to do research and read papers kind of seminars. So as a PhD student, primarily you're focused on research, and that's why typically the PhD program will be around like 4 years, so a little bit shorter than what the duration is in the US. Mm-hmm. And then as a PhD student, you are affiliated with IMDEA and a university of your choice. Typically, it's the local university, the Polytechnic School of Madrid, because we are co-located in the same campus. So your PhD will actually be granted from the university. And IMDEA is here to pay you and give you the faculty advisor.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I guess also many other of the research institutes, they don't grant the PhDs degrees by themselves, right? But have a university.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the way IMDEA works is very similar to how other research institutes in Europe work, like Max Planck. They have similarities in terms of the recruiting cycle, that it can be more up to the faculty, and that the PhD will be granted from some university that is affiliated with the institute.
And mentioning other research institutes, so are you aware of any major differences to, let's say, MPI in Germany or CISPA or IST Austria and so on?
I think they are all pretty much similar with respect to their research institute. And there's always a university that is closely affiliated with it. Like I know MPI software is affiliated with the university at the same city. I cannot pronounce the name. I don't have it on top of my head. So I think that's typical. And then students, I think faculty recruiting their own students is also quite similar. And the teaching part also, because I think that because they're a research institute, it's harder to teach. So now your recruiting comes from other sources. Like you do a lot of work on recruiting with personal contacts or mailing lists, like trying to put your name out there and through connections, get students to apply to the positions.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. I guess IMDEA also has an excellent social presence, right?
Yeah, they do. They do a great job with social media. And maybe I can also mention that right now is that generally IMDE has a very good HR department, so human resources department. So there is a person that is responsible for social media, a person that is responsible for hiring, a person that is responsible for projects and funding that I'm going to also talk a little bit later. So the Institute has a great support for that. And that's why they build a very good international reputation. So even when I was in the US, I knew about them. I have heard about them through various sources. So they do a good job on pushing their name out there.
And speaking of funding, so where does funding for students typically come from?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the difference that this institute has compared to, let's say, US universities. So the institute has its own funding that they secure from, I believe, local and national sources. So this funding now gives the faculty the flexibility to have 1 to 2 students at any time. So the institute gives you funding to have 1 or 2 students and interns at any time. And that funding comes from local resources. Now, as a faculty, again, you can apply to local and national resources. This is one line of funding, and that can give you extra funding for students and other resources and traveling and hardware. And then going outside from like Madrid and national, you go to the European level, which is same for any European institute or university with ERC and more collaborative grants, starting grants. So that is up to you to apply for those and push for those, and that will give you even more extra funding. So the good thing about IMDE is that you have this security of at least being able to hire 1 or 2 students at any point of time, like consistently have 1 or 2 students. So in that sense, at least my, as a junior faculty, I don't have the stress of funding right away when I join. So I can focus on other things like student recruiting and getting my name out there. So that has been very, very nice to have here.
Yeah, that sounds great. And also in more general terms, because we talked about the funding system now in Spain, like, is there anything else that you can tell us about the academic landscape in Spain and how the system works?
Yeah, from my understanding so far, given the 2 months that I've been here, there are a lot of universities in the city of Madrid itself. And then, so there are like good students, and these students typically pursue bachelor's and master's degrees. There are also these European breadth master's degree that, for example, students can do some year in one country and another year in another country. So in this way, we also get students from all over the world for that. And then up until that is very good, we get very good students, but my understanding is that then students may pursue industrial positions because of payment or other preferences. So now for graduate level research, we don't, my opinion is, like, my view is that not a lot of Spanish talent will pursue research or academia. And that is exactly what, like, one major focus of IMDEA is to really do a very good job at publicizing their name and what they do in local universities through events, through talks. Yeah, so that's my view so far.
Yeah, good summary. Yeah, so you recently moved. You said you've been at IMDEA for 2 months. And how has the transition been so far?
Yeah, it's been challenging, nice and challenging at the same time, I think. So originally, I grew up in Greece, so I'm very familiar with Europe, and it's one of the reasons I choose to be here, and the European lifestyle, I really enjoy it and appreciate it. But I was for 6 years in the US. So I think that threw me off a little bit. So transitioning back in Europe I think I do have some cultural shock, in the sense that now there's a new lifestyle that I need to get adjusted to on a personal level. So going from US, where you have a car, you have like other flexibilities or whatnot, now you're back to Europe, where you have to take public transport, and maybe it takes you longer to go to work. So getting adjusted to that. But then on the other side, the lifestyle is great in Madrid. Like the weather is very nice. So, and people respect a lot the work-life balance compared to my experience in the US. So that has been very pleasant. Then in terms of the language, it has been a little bit of a challenge, in the sense that at work, everything is in English, no problem with that. But in everyday, in like getting some things arranged in the new house or setting up utilities, people generally don't speak English. So that has been a bit of a challenge, but I believe it's there only for the beginning, when you want to do things. And then I realized that pretty much, if you want it or not, you actually learn some Spanish, even from everyday life. And at some point, a lot of people also take classes to get a little bit of push. And then after 1 year, I believe most people somehow learn how to speak Spanish and be more comfortable in outside settings. So I think I'm gonna also be one of these people. Like, I also started Spanish lessons right now. And it's nice. Like, if you know French or other Italian, for example, it's very easy to learn Spanish. So that's good. So these were mostly the challenges. But other than that, I thoroughly enjoy this work, my job, from any level, like being having flexibility and having control over what I do. I really enjoy that, and like managing my own work and being responsible for it. It's a lot of work. There are a lot of things that you need to learn how to manage, and I'm still learning how to do that. So all the different tasks that a faculty has to do, it's there. Like you need to, I spend a lot of days emailing and just doing that. But at the end of the day, I really enjoy it. And I also really like the interaction with students. So exactly because I don't teach, I try to do other things in the institute that I'm also going to talk a little bit later about. But I try my hardest to do activities here and have a strong presence. And yeah, I really enjoy it thus far. So I know jumping from PhD to faculty is intimidating, and sometimes it's hard, and definitely it's challenging. But I really enjoy being my own boss right now. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. And I mean, in terms of students, did you already start interviewing some? And
yeah, exactly. So I'm now, like, I opened a position 1 month ago. This position was open for 1.5 months around. And so in that process, I was interviewing students, and right now I'm in the process of selecting 1 or 2 students to work with me starting from this January. So that process was, it did require a lot of work in terms of me publicizing this position, because I'm not teaching, I need other resources to get applicants. So I reached out to my previous mentors in Greece. I reached out to other faculty I know throughout Europe, and I'm trying my best. I spend a lot of time finding resources to publicize the position through social media, through mailing lists. And that has been somewhat successful, but in the future, I know what to do better and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's been great. Like, I really look forward having a student to work with very soon, instead of having to wait more. So that has been great.
I think in this position, it's also important to quickly build up more visibility, right? To get you to know you like more broadly and find students. So do you have any concrete suggestions on how to do that, or how did you approach that, besides what you already said?
Yes. So that's, I'm still actively trying to do that. So again, emailing contacts, and in some case, even people that I didn't personally know maybe through my PhD advisor, or maybe I know their name, but I haven't actually met them. I took the leap to actually email them, and sometimes they reply, sometimes they don't, but either way, it's nice emailing people and spreading my contacts more. And then through the contacts I already have, I'm trying to arrange for some invited talks at universities that are local in Madrid and Barcelona. Also, there is a supercomputing center there, and I'm increasing interactions there. And then more broadly in Europe, with some of my contacts, for example, in Vienna, I'm trying to give more talks. I also definitely plan to give some talks in Greece, more tailored to Greek students, like going back to my alma mater and doing something there. Yeah, so that's in terms of increasing my visibility. And then going more into, and so that can get me students, but also that can get me more involved into the service and research community, which I really look forward to. I know the biggest challenge is to not say yes, but in the beginning, I really want to say yes for some things so that I get more involved and I actually do some things I enjoy. So in terms of the research community, already I am chairing a workshop for next spring. I'm also involved in promoting conferences as a social media chair. And also like slowly I'm getting more and more invites. For example, I'll be involved in the EuroSys, and that will select a PhD dissertation award. So I think slowly I'm getting even more invites. I'm sure at some point I will start to saying no, but until then, I'm really enjoying that I have like different types of service to do, like social media or committees here. So it's not just program committees, but it's also other types of involvement in a conference. So that has been very nice. And then even locally at IMDEA, I really want to increase my interaction with the students that are here. And so what I'm doing, I put together I put together some mentoring sessions. What I plan to do is every month I want to sit down with students at IMDEA and talk to them about something. So for this month, we started with mental health issues. And I know it's a heavy topic, but I think it's very important. So I gave them some advice on how to go through emotional challenges throughout PhD and generally research. And I'm doing my best to start conversations and make students feel comfortable talking about things and not being isolated in their own bubble. And then especially with respect to diversity and inclusion, which is very close to my heart, I'm doing my best to bring together the women of the Institute and any underrepresented minority. So I'm putting together, for example, a coffee hour. And because it's gonna be Christmas, it's also gonna be Christmas crafts. So like doing something all together, I think it's very, very nice. And you know, like the thing is that there needs to be someone that puts it together. Like everybody wants to do these things, but somebody needs to make the start. And I'm really happy to make that start. And I'm sure that after that, it's gonna keep going because people really wanna come back. Like they wanna be back physically in the offices, and especially after the pandemic, I think it's very important to do these things.
Yeah, sounds like excellent initiatives,
yeah.
but also taking some time, I guess.
It takes some time, but like this is the part of the job that I actually really enjoyed. I was enjoying it from my PhD, like doing volunteers activities and organizational activities, and it pays off throughout. Like it helps people a lot, and it's a very good to do.
Yeah, I would say let's get started chatting about the application process. And there is a first question. When considering where to apply, like what were the important factors that you considered?
Yeah. So last year around this time, I was considering where to apply, and I knew very well that I wanted to primarily focus in Europe so that I could potentially relocate back. I quickly realized that the European academic job market is very different from the US in the sense that there are not many positions that open up on a regular basis. So I quickly realized there are actually very few universities and institutes in Europe that have an open call, let's say in December or around that time. So I thought I would apply to many more places in the US, in Europe, but essentially I applied to only 5 that I was aware of. They had openings, and then I realized that other universities in Europe have openings at random times throughout the year, which I was not aware of, but now I know. So then, exactly because I applied to very few places in Europe, I told myself that, okay, I need to apply to also places to the US, because I still was not sure about Europe versus US. I was very confused about it, to be honest. So I ended up then applying to some places in the US, which, I mean, all of them had openings in December. And then my primary selection point was the city. So I wanted to be in a city that is big, that is livable. So I prioritized my life and my preferences in terms of lifestyle. I knew that I didn't want to go into a college town or a smaller place because I would be by myself, and I just didn't want to do it. So I focused on big cities or close to big cities, and I applied to around 10 schools in the US. So I didn't apply to any places that I knew I wouldn't want to go. So, and that's one advice that my PhD advisor gave me. And she's like, if you're applying to a school that you don't want to go and you get to interview there, it immediately shows that you're interviewing just for the case of sake of interviewing. So I didn't want to do that. And yeah, so my applications were around 15 overall, and I didn't apply to any like safe schools or anything.
Yeah, makes sense. I also received the same advice and follow it. So
yeah.
And were you also applying for any positions in industry, like research positions also?
Okay, so I consider some research industry positions, but very few, like 1 or 2, and at the end they were not very successful. And then I was certain that I didn't want to pursue purely industrial positions, and for that I was battling about industry versus academia around the 4th year of my PhD. I was really not sure about it. But I was lucky that I have done some internships in purely research and purely industry environments. So then I had this experience, and I knew I wanted to have something more academic. And then towards the end of my PhD, research was going much, much better. So then at the end of it, I was certain that I want to pursue academia. So I applied directly for faculty positions. That was also, you can say that this was also a risk, because going from PhD to academia, we see a lot of people successfully doing it in CS, in computer science. In other fields, it's not very common. So then, but anyways, I took the risk. And then my fallback would be to pursue a postdoc. But that would be if my applications were not successful.
Okay, makes sense. And also during this preparation phase, so assuming that you could go back in time and do things differently, would there have been anything that you would have approached differently or prepared differently?
Yeah, so in terms of preparation, I think I did a good job, like the things I could personally do in terms of the material. So I think the research statement, teaching diversity, I think I did a good job. And then after that, I did a mock interview at Georgia Tech to practice the job talk, which was also very, very helpful. So in terms of the material, I think I did a good job. Now, in terms of other things, what I would try to do better is reach out to more contacts. So my PhD advisor reached out to their contacts in the schools that I was applying, just to make them aware of my application and put their attention to that. But there were places where I could also do that, for example. So even though I didn't know the faculty, I could go ahead and email them and try to draw more attention to my application and hopefully get more interviews through that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then about interviewing, so when did you receive your first interview invitations?
Yeah. So I received my interviews around mid-March, and I think that's kind of on the later side for most candidates. But either way, I was very happy to get, and I didn't get many. I'm gonna be bluntly honest. I got two. I got one in the US and one in Europe, which was perfect because I had one choice at each. So then I interviewed around end of March, beginning of April, and both interviews were virtual, online. Yeah. So.
And for IMDEA, what was the structure? Was it a one-day interview or 2 days, or and how was it structured?
So the IMDEA interview, because of the time difference, we had a 6-hour time difference. It was 2 half days. So for them it was afternoon. For me it was morning. And then for the US university, it was 1 full day.
In these interviews, did they consist mostly of one-on-one meetings and job talk, I assume, or?
Yeah. So I would say that both interviews were very similar. And I think that's mostly because IMDEA follows a lot the US system in that process. So both interviews, US and Europe, had the job talk, a lot of one-on-ones, mostly one-on-ones with different faculties in different areas, not just my area. And then there was a student meeting. In one case, I personally asked to put the student meeting because I believe it's very important. So all the components were pretty much the same.
And in the one-on-one meetings, so how did they typically look? What did you talk about?
Yeah, so in the one-on-ones, if it was a person that was close to my area, then we would mostly talk about research, and they would follow up on my job talk, for example. If the one-on-one was after my job talk, we would have more points to talk to. If it was before, then it was limited what I could say, what we could talk about research. And then I did talk with a few faculty outside of my research, for example, a theory professor or other professors. And then my questions were more aligned with the institute, like how do they advise students, how many students they have, and where do they get their funding. So trying to understand other aspects of the university and the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a faculty candidate, it's always difficult to find out what's actually happening at the other side, right?
Yeah.
But are there like any things that you believe helped you get the eventual offer?
Yeah, I think I have some things, and I mean, of course, I cannot be certain. It's very awkward to ask about, but I think my biggest asset was my job talk and like how I delivered. I think I did a very good job delivering that job talk, and I think if I had a way to show them the job talk during the application, I may have gotten more interviews. So I think my job talk really really made the interview successful. And I think that if I could submit a video, for example, of my job talk in the application and more people got to see it, then I would have gotten more interviews. That's just my impression. But then I really think it's very important to meet with the students. So in one case, I specifically asked to meet with the students. And then this is the meeting where you really can learn many more details and about the institute and the university. And then I did that because during the last years, I have also participated in these meetings as a student. So people that interview at Georgia Tech, I would always go to these recruiting meetings. And then as a student, I could always tell if this person actually wants to come here or not by what they were asking. So because you can always ask very standard questions, but then if you're actually interested, I think it shows. And then, for example, at IMDEA, then I had students that emailed me like, I really enjoyed meeting you. And I think that's important because in most places, the student opinion is taken into consideration. And then some other things I did that I would suggest people to do is to follow up with each faculty that you did on one-on-one. And in my case, I was very diligent to make that interaction personal. So I would personally email the faculties like with their names, not just send any generic email. And then I would follow up on any specific discussion we had. So if, for example, we discussed about a paper and something like that, then I would try to follow up on that and make it even more specific. And then, of course, what gets you the job also, like at least what gets you the interview is your reference letters. You need to pick good reference writers. But what gets you the job, I think, is also your reputation at your current institution. So I am certain that people at IMDEA or like generally people ask other acquaintances they have at your university to learn about you. Maybe you're not collaborating with them, but maybe they know you through classes or through other ways. And if you have a good reputation at your school, like if you're engaging with the community and you're doing a lot of volunteer activities so that other faculty also know you, I think that's also like very important. Yeah.
Okay, well, lots of great advice and information in this answer.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm actually quite curious now, is your job talk also online somewhere on YouTube or so, or not?
That's a good question. I don't think it is, but I should put it. Yeah, I didn't think about it.
Now I would be very excited to watch it.
Yeah, yeah, I should put it.
And also, since you mentioned that at Georgia Tech, you were also on the other side, that you were basically a student in these meetings. So I'm curious, after the meeting, is it typical that you also report back your impression about the candidate and so on, or?
Yes. So what we do at Georgia Tech, we have a student that is responsible of recruiting other students for that meeting. And then after the meeting ends, we fill out a form that says, like we actually rank the candidate and we say a few words about what is our opinion. And then these forms, maybe there are like 4 students that go to these meetings. Then these forms are given to the faculty that are in the recruiting committee to take into consideration. I don't know how much is taken into consideration, but yeah, I mean, I believe it is.
Yeah, so I think we chatted now about interviewing. So what did you do when you received your first offer?
Yeah, so I interviewed at 2 places and I got offers from 2 places. So I was very lucky with that. And then I first got the offer from the US institution around mid of April. So maybe like 2 weeks after my interview. And then, but then I didn't hear back from IMDEA until like end of April. So then I actually emailed IMDEA and told them, hey, I have an offer from another institution. Can you let me know what is your position? So then I was able to get the answer from IMDEA, I think a little bit sooner maybe than I would. So by end of April, I had 2 offers and I had like maybe until like mid-May to decide. And essentially I decided around, I think later in May. Yeah, so, and then what I did to make this decision, because I was still like very indecisive between US and Europe, I ended up visiting the US institution. For Europe, I couldn't visit because of Corona. My visa was expired, like it was impossible to visit him there. But I did visit the other institution, and that was, I think, the pandemic was still there, so we couldn't do a lot of things. But I was able to have like somehow of a formal second visit. So I was able to personally meet with the dean, with the chair, with the other one or two other professors. And I did a campus tour, like I saw the place. I met with a realtor that showed me apartments so that I get a sense of the cost of living and what my life would be there. So that was super useful. It clarified the idea I had about the institute. It didn't make the decision much easier because now I have seen a place and I have not seen a place, which is also very hard. The director at IMDEA was also very kind because we had a video call and he actually went with his phone and showed me around IMDEA in the best way that he could. So I got a sense of that. But then anyways, I had to make this very tough decision of US versus Europe. And then what I did is I trusted my gut, and I knew that my gut told me from 1 year ago that I wanted to apply more to European places and relocate back to Europe. So I followed my gut, even though I didn't visit him there. And what I told to myself, at least, and I hope it pays out, is that since I want to definitely go back to Europe at some point, like that, I was certain. I didn't know exactly when it's a good time to be back, but I told myself that I'm taking this opportunity now and I'm making this big step now so that I start from here and I try to get established here. So in a few years, I have more contacts in Europe, I'm better established. And either way, at the end, I know that I want to be back in Europe. That's what I say now. Hopefully that will pay off and I'll have a good career in Europe. But yeah, so I am one of these people that chose a place without visiting, just by trusting my gut. And of course, everything else was very nice. Like my interactions with the faculty, like the conversations I've had were very nice, both in Europe and in US. Yeah, it's just that I hadn't seen the place in person.
Right, I guess that made it difficult for our generation of faculty candidates.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm sure, because many more faculty, like last year, I don't know how many got to actually see the places that they would join, essentially. So that was a challenge because of the pandemic, but yeah.
Good. And you also have never been to Spain before, or have you been to Spain?
Nope, I hadn't been to Spain. I hadn't been to Madrid. I have only, but whoever I talked to. So what I also did about IMDEA is I actually reached out to faculty that used to be here, for example, because there are like people that would come here and maybe after 2 or 3 years they would leave because of whatever personal reasons or not. So, and I reached out to like 2 or 3 faculty like that, and they were super helpful. And even though they had left the institute because of their own reasons, while they were at the institute, they were just saying very nice things. So that gave me confidence that it is a good place and people actually like to be here. And that so far has been true. Like trusting my gut and coming here, I don't regret it. Like I'm very confident in my decision and I really enjoy it.
Okay, yeah, sounds great. I still have a couple of more high-level questions to wrap up. And the first one is, we already mentioned now your service roles also that you did at Georgia Tech a couple of times. And I also read your article or the article about you in this Georgia Tech computing news, which also mentioned service roles. So it seems they were also an important part in your PhD. So
yes, absolutely.
So that's basically the question, like what kind of role do you think this had also for your job search?
Yes. So while at Georgia Tech, around the last half of it, I started becoming very active in service roles within Georgia Tech. So I started volunteering for school level events, for example, organizing the PhD visit days or participating in these student meetings about faculty recruiting and stuff. And then towards the very, very end, especially during the pandemic, I sat together with a few of my fellow PhD students, and we actually created the Graduate Student Association of the School of Computer Science. So that was a huge step, and they are doing amazing things. And this is a great leap for the community of the school. So these things, it takes time to do these things, but it's so beneficial because it helps you grow your skills, your organizational skills, your interpersonal skills. So that made me a much better applicant in terms of being better at giving talks, being good at communicating and following up with people, because I'm familiar with like sending emails and doing all these organizational things. So it helped my application implicitly. I did say these things in the diversity statement, for example, so it also contributed to that, but I think it has a more implicit role through how you present yourself and how you manage yourself. And then again, going back to having a good reputation to the school that you are. So if somebody was emailing a faculty at SCS, probably they would have heard my name through the various emails I have sent, or they would have met me in some of these events. So even though they are not working with me, they can say good things about me because they know who I am, because I'm active in the community. So I think it helped a lot implicitly.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
And the article also mentioned the importance of having a great mentor and the role of the mentor. So how did your mentor or advisor help you with the job search?
Yeah, it was, I am very, very lucky to have had such an advisor. By the way, her name is Ada Gavrilovska, and she's a faculty at Georgia Tech. It was, I mean, she's my role model from every aspect. She's a woman, she works hard, she has a very good career so far. So it's very inspiring to see how she grows and how she manages things. So I learned a lot from her about that. She was very supportive of me pursuing an academic career. And that's also very important because in my personal environment, I don't have, for example, somebody in my family who is an academic. So I would be the first one to pursue an academic career. My siblings are in industry, so they didn't know how to support me through that. So my advisor was my primary guide throughout this process. Of course, emotionally, my family was also very helpful. So she was a rock. And then, like, especially through the interview process and the waiting, and you don't know how many interviews you're gonna get, you don't know how many offers you're gonna get, so you really need this emotional support. So she was always believing in myself, and that was very, like, emotional support was very important. And then the practical way that she helped me with was to, of course, advertise my application and my name through her personal contacts. So she would reach out to people that she knows across institutions to let them know of my application and whatnot. So practically, that's also how she helped me.
Yeah, sounds great. And I can also echo the importance of having a great mentor. So I'm also very glad to have had one. Yeah.
And throughout the PhD, like choosing an advisor that you can communicate well with and they're supporting you throughout your PhD is very important.
Yeah. Any final advice that you can share with future faculty candidates?
Yeah. I think, like, summarizing what I've said so far, and maybe like the things to get away from these interviews, like my suggestion is that, candidates spend some time preparing the material. Of course, everybody does that, but it's important to present a good material, a good job talk, practice the job talk. And then my advice is to spend some time spreading your application and letting people know that you have applied through your advisor and through your own effort. So that is one thing. The other thing is about where to apply is really apply at places that you actually want to go. I've heard that some people apply to like 40 places. I don't know, these numbers to me are very crazy, because if you end up getting 40 interviews, how are you going to manage it? And especially now that I'm sure like interviews will be back in person, going to the places that you actually want to go and putting your best self out there is very important, because if you don't want to be there, it will show at some point. It will be obvious even by the students. So yeah, that's in terms of where to apply. And then the overall through the process is to what I did, and so far it's been great for me. It's to trust your gut and what you want to do, because you start with your vision and then you start talking to people, right, to get advice. But then this advice may influence you, because somebody may be passionate about being in a certain city or a certain institution. So you get all this advice and mentoring, which is good, but then you should be able to take a step back and process it, and don't lose track of what you originally want to do. So yeah, just going with what you want to do and let the others help you, but not sidetrack you from what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all I had for today, I think. Yeah, it's been great doing that, and I hope people this series in general is very helpful. Like, I wish I had it when I applied, and I really like that you have picked people from different institutes across the world, so everybody can benefit from any video that you've done. And it's really important that you contribute like that to the community, and I really want to thank you for including me in this effort.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the nice work, and also for the very insightful interview today. I'm also sure
Thank
that many
you.
people will like very much appreciate your
Yeah, I hope
information,
so.
insights.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, then bye, and thank you, Thalia.
Thank you. Bye.